If you're an action figure collector and you like the idea of just saving money, just having extra zeros in your bank account, then this is definitely not the video for you, because in today's video, we're actually going to be counting down the top 5 most expensive Spider-Man Marvel Legends online. And let me be brutally honest with you guys, this was a very difficult list to put together. First of all, because you guys know I hate doing research. That's just not my GIF. It's not my thing. So I kind of had to browse around online and spend a bunch of time just kind of browsing through different sold listings, different stuff that's on sale at the moment. But the main reason is because the prices tend to fluctuate a lot online, specifically when you're using websites like eBay, for example. You might have some outliers here and there. You might have figures that sold for astronomically high prices, even though they don't have a lot of value in the open market. So it just really depends on when the figure was sold and whether I believe it was sold at like a fair value instead of just being one of those ridiculous sales. There's examples of really low sales as well, where maybe nobody paid attention and something sold at auction for like 50% off. So I'm going to take all that into account. But as I said, this is kind of, I guess in a way it's somewhat subjective, just because I did take some figures out here and there that I think are priced at a certain amount but don't really sell for that amount at all. Without further ado, let's get straight into today's list. Let's start off with number 5, where we have the Marvel Legends retro carded Spider-Man from 2020. This is easily probably one of the most difficult Spider-Mans to obtain. I think one of the main reasons is it introduced us to a new body mold with a new articulation point. It still had the amazing butterfly joints, double jointed elbows and knees, but they introduced the double ab crunch, which is something that we hadn't seen before. And unfortunately, I think it was like a year before or a year too early when it came down to the pinless technology, because it still has those ugly, ridiculous pins that people just lose their minds over. And the toe articulation, I think, was still about a year or two away with like the first appearance and the Renew Your Vows Spider-Man, which eventually came with eventually the body molds came with toe articulation. But again, this figure didn't quite have that just yet, but it did have that classic suit. It had that classic, the classic colors from the animated series, and it came in a beautiful retro carded packaging. It eventually became very difficult to find, even though it was released and it was pretty widely available for a very short period of time, but eventually just sold out everywhere. Not to mention, this was at the peak of the pandemic, so a lot of people were already struggling to find it. A lot of people weren't really going out, so those few people that jumped on the opportunity of the few that were available, they were able to really hit it big. So the figure as a whole, the numbers are really skewed right now. I think a lot of it has to do with a lot of the overseas knockoff figures or the non-official Marvel Legends that have been getting sold from like AliExpress and a lot of these other websites. And I think that has really driven down the value, just because it's very difficult to tell whether it's an original figure or whether it's one of these knockoff reproduction action figures. So if you're looking to pick this one up, honestly, I would suggest to be very cautious, especially online. Do your research, really look at the pictures, talk to the seller, make sure that this person is honest and that you can trust them. But for the most part, this is a figure that should be getting sold close to about 100. I think at its peak it was close to 200. Even low 200s. Right now you should be able to find it in really good condition for low 100s, 120, maybe 130, even as high as 150 when it like in really mint condition. But it is a very expensive figure, but it definitely deserves the spot on the list. As I said, there were a few other figures that I thought about maybe putting in on number 5. There are a few others that I think could have easily been here. For example, you have the Spider-Man Noir, you have the original Miles Morales, you have a few other figures that I thought about putting here because they were close to that price range. But like I said, I think because of those knockoff figures, I think they're driving the value down a little bit, but this figure is still worth, I think, about, well over $100. So that's our number 5. Let's jump straight into number 4, where we have the Spider-Punk action figure. Yes, technically this is an alternate reality, an alternate version of Spider-Man. This is technically not Peter Parker, but he still is technically Spider-Man Marvel Legend. And I know we got a more recent version or a more recent iteration from the Across the Spider-Verse film, and that's a fantastic figure in and of its own. It's retro carded, it looks absolutely brilliant. But today we're going to be talking about the comic book accurate Spider-Punk, which is a part of that Lizard Build-A-Figure wave. It was a very, very coveted wave, very difficult to find in person in stores. If you wanted to go hunting out there, it was a little bit more difficult to find it. And now forget about it. It's one of the figures that is just astronomically out of reach of most collectors, or at least collectors that don't feel like spending well over $100 on an action figure. Same thing with this particular character. For some unknown reason, even though they're not the exact same action figure, but from the moment that the Across the Spider-Verse version of this character came out, this particular figure did drop a little bit in value. It was going for a little bit more in previous months, and before the film actually got announced and got released. So I still think that there's some room on this. The main reason why I put it at the 4th spot is because even though the value has dropped a little bit, I think it's going to go up eventually. Just like I said, outside sources kind of affecting the value on it. But if you're looking for an action figure that is like in prime, almost mint condition, unopened, you're going to be paying roughly what you would be paying for the retro carded Spider-Man. Like I said, there have been some outliers recently. It has been selling through some of the auctions for a slightly lesser price, but I still think it's going to be a figure that you pick up for roughly a little bit over $100. But very similar to the retro carded Spider-Man, I definitely feel like it's a figure that is a must-have in your display. Obviously, if you can't swing an old $100 Marvel Legends action figure right now, there's no problem with it. But if you do have like an extra $150 or $120, this is definitely a really cool figure to pick up and have in your display. So that's our number 4. Let's jump into our 3rd spot, where we have the Andrew Garfield Amazing Spider-Man Walmart exclusive Marvel Legends. Now, this is a figure that, according to my insanely thorough research, which basically comprised of me Googling something for about a minute, it turns out there are 2 different versions for this particular figure. There's one that comes masked and then one unmasked. This was supposed to be a Walmart exclusive. I'm not sure if it was. Like I said, it was before my time, before I was actually collecting action figures, or I should say I did collect them, but I wasn't purchasing anything from stores. Like, I still had my parents pick them up for me at the time. If you're not into the old school ugly articulation joints that they had back then, you can actually pick up a modern rendition of this particular character. We did receive an Andrew Garfield action figure with the new No Way Home retro carded action figure wave. So if you guys are interested, you guys can actually go ahead and pick them up. I think they were in stock at the Target application. So if you guys are interested, you guys should be able to ship these to your house or pick them up in store if you guys don't really trust the shipping process for Target or Walmart, because honestly you shouldn't. Now, the price point for this particular figure is really all over the place. I've seen it for as low as like 180 to 160, and I've seen it as high as like low 300s. I guess it depends on the seller, the condition of the packaging. I'm assuming that you guys are interested in picking this up brand new in packaging, and I have seen sales for as high as $200, well over $200 in the sold listing. So I guess it just depends. The one particularly that I have on the spot has to be the one with the alternate head or the unmasked head. I'm assuming that one's a little bit more rare, at least according to eBay prices. So I'm assuming that one's a little bit more difficult to find. Regardless, if you're interested in picking this figure up, you're going to be paying close to $200 for it. Like I said, if it's rare, if it's difficult to find, it's just going to be the price point for this figure. And as I mentioned earlier, if you want the updated version, you can actually go ahead and pick that one up for about $25, maybe like $28 including tax and shipping. So it shouldn't be really that bad if you just want an Andrew Garfield action figure in your display. But if you're looking for the specific original one that got released along with the film, then you're going to be out about $200. Now let's move into number 2 here, and we're going to be talking about Tobey Maguire and Sam Raimi yet again. I get it, Spider-Man 3 wasn't the absolute massive hit that the previous two were, but it's still my favorite Spider-Man source material. I think Spider-Man 2 with Doc Ock is probably the greatest Spider-Man movie of all time. But again, that's just my personal opinion. Today we're going to be talking about the black suited Spider-Man 3 Tobey Maguire Marvel Legend. Let's not forget this figure is a part of that old school Sandman build-a-figure wave, which is highly coveted. Everybody's going after it, and a lot of the figures, actually, I think every single figure in this particular wave has gone astronomically high in terms of prices. The chances of us ever getting another Tobey Maguire Marvel Legend action figure, I think, has plummeted in recent years. Yes, we are getting a No Way Home version, but this isn't the original Tobey Maguire Sam Raimi trilogy Spider-Man. I hopefully in the future we get something like that, but we have received some other versions of the black suited Spider-Man or the symbiote Spider-Man. We did receive a retro carded, and then we had the 2-pack VHS version as well. But as I mentioned, none of these are the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man 3 versions, which I don't see us getting anytime soon. Maybe in the foreseeable future, Hasbro decides to revisit those. I'm not sure how expensive that would be, but maybe in the near future we get something like that. However, if you are looking for this action figure mint in packaging, or at least in really good condition, you're going to be paying a pretty hefty price. I've seen it for somewhere along like mid 200s. I've seen some outliers here and there, but the market is dictating around $250 upwards of $300. So that's kind of the price range that you're going to be looking at. Like I said, there might have been some sold listings here and there for a little bit under that, but they're pretty consistently getting listed for about $300, and they get multiple different watchers. I'm assuming, as I usually say, they're definitely making offers and trying to pry it for a smaller price. But it seems that if you want a reputable seller, somebody that you can trust, somebody that you can confide in, when it comes down to collectibles, you will be having to pay roughly at least high 200s for this particular action figure. Not to mention, it is part of that Sandman build-a-figure, so a lot of people are after that particular piece as well. You have finally made it to the top spot. I feel like you deserve an award, an applause, maybe some sort of like unlockable achievement like you do with your console. Just pretend I'm giving you like a long distance fist bump. But if you did enjoy the content and if you really liked it, go ahead and hit the like button, subscribe. It really does help the channel. But let's get straight into the top spot. We're going to be talking about the Spider-Man 2099 first appearance action figure from Toy Biz, all the way back in 2001. And clearly his appearance in Across the Spider-Verse has definitely catapulted this action figure. Although for those of us that have been reading comic books for years now, we're very familiar with his first appearance and how much value it has and the upside that it has had for quite some time. And let's not forget, this action figure does come with the Spider-Man 2099 first comic book issue, which is also simultaneously one of his first appearances. It's a very highly coveted comic book, especially the one that comes inside of the action figure. It does come in like a plastic blister. So if it is in near mint or mint condition and you decide to send it off to CGC to get graded, this could potentially be a very expensive comic book. Not to mention, it still holds value even if it's in raw condition, but a very high grade. Again, it will still hold value just because of his most recent appearance in Across the Spider-Verse, but again, because he continues to be a candidate for a live action film franchise, or for him to make an appearance in any live action projects, I think his first appearance will always have a lot of value, or some of his first appearances. And because of the fact that not only action figure collectors are going after this figure, but also comic book collectors, the price tag on this action figure has gone up to as high as like mid 400s. We do see some outliers for like high 300s. But if you're looking for one that's in really good condition, which obviously you do because of the comic book's value or potential value, this is going to be an action figure that if you do pick up in mint condition, you're going to be paying upwards of 400, anywhere from like 430 to 450 to 460. And don't ever think you're going to get a deal on this particular action figure, because there is quite a bit of competition. There are quite a few watchers for every single figure that is being sold online, or every single listing. So there's definitely going to be a lot of competition. Keep an eye on every single figure if you're interested in it. Like I said, it's a phenomenal figure to pick up for a number of different reasons, especially considering we haven't really received that many modern 2099 action figures. I believe that there was a retro carded one that got sold not too long ago, but it sold out pretty quickly, and eventually you do have to pay about like $50 for a modern Marvel Legend. So there you guys have it. I've wasted enough of your time, enough saliva. Let me know your thoughts down below. Leave a comment. What's your favorite entry into the list, or did I miss one? I'm sure I missed quite a few, because, well, Spider-Man Marvel Legends can be quite expensive. So thank you guys for tuning in. Stay tuned. We have a lot more content coming at you guys, at least probably 2 more top 5 videos. So stay tuned for that. Thank you guys for tuning in, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Thank you.